Thank you, first of all, everyone for coming. I'm Rebecca Baird, the Associate Director of the Center for Career Development at the law school, Rutgers Law School at the Camden location. And thanks especially to our judges, three judges from the New Jersey Superior Court and a law clerk who are here to speak to you today about the work of a law clerk. And Kevin Harmon is here as well from the Administrative Office of the Courts to kind of put take some of the mystery out of the whole process for students. So thank you, Kevin. So our guests represent different geographic locations in the state and different divisions of the court. First, we have the Honorable Deborah Silverman Katz, who is here online. I'm not sure we can get her up. She's the assignment judge in Camden County. We have the Honorable Gerard Breland, who is the criminal division in Burlington County, and Honorable Jacqueline Medina, who's in the family division in Bergen County. And we also have Judge Medina's law clerk, Maria de Oliveira, who is a Rutgers law grad from last year, 2019. So just very briefly, as you probably know, the the New Jersey court system is recognized nationally for its progressive and innovative work. And the clerkship system is also nationally recognized. And each year the court hires about almost 500 law clerks, making it the largest program in the country. So I always tell my students, that's a lot of jobs, good jobs for entry-level attorneys. So our guests will describe the work of their law clerks and give you some information about the hiring process. And as I said in a chat here, that use the chat feature for questions and keep your videos and microphones muted during the program. And questions at the end after the judges and Maria have gone through some critical information for you. I'm not sure how there's Judge Medina. Let me unmute her. If I can do that now. Okay, it looks like you're unmuted. Are you there, Judge Medina?
I am trying to adjust lighting here for you all. Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you very much for being here. So, okay, so you're online. There you are. Thank you for being here. So, so let's just start with some introductions from the judges and Maria about about your background and what you enjoy most about your work as a judge. I'm not sure who wants to start. Judge Medina, you're up, so maybe do you want to start?
Sure. My name is Judge Medina. I actually just celebrated my first year on the bench last Friday, and it's been an incredible experience and a wonderful opportunity for me to lend some of the trial skills that I developed over my 14-year career as a public defender, doing felony criminal indictable work. And it really has been an incredible opportunity for me to collaborate with other individuals in the judiciary and outside of the judiciary and kind of take on this new chapter of my legal career. So beyond that, I was the vice president of the New Jersey Hispanic Bar Association, and I had some experience for a term on District Ethics Committee, and I was appointed to serve on the Minority Concerns Committee, which is now known as the Diversity and Inclusion and Community Engagement Committee of the New Jersey Supreme Court. And I'm still sitting on that committee right now as a judge as well. So I'm thrilled to be able to speak to so many law students who are really in this very unprecedented time. And I'm thrilled to be able to entertain any questions that you all may have.
Thank you, Judge Medina. Judge Breland, do you want to go next?
Sure.
A little bit about your
I spent sort of on the opposite side of the on the other side of the table from Judge Medina. I was a prosecutor in Hudson County for about 20, not nearly 24 years. Ironically, just a little tidbit, I know Judge Caslow very well in Bergen, and we actually tried a case together years ago and was a not guilty in about 5 minutes, probably the quickest verdict ever, so he did a good job. But I've always liked public service. I've always wanted to be involved in public service. I always wanted to be a litigator in the courtroom. And the transition to becoming a judge for me has been a little almost 6. Yeah, almost 6 coming up in July. But it's different. It's very, very enjoyable. I never, ever, ever forget what a blessing it is to be in the position and the awesome and weighty responsibility involved in trying to dispense justice, trying to make sure all sides have a fair shake, and that the hopefully convincing litigants, which is not always the case, but convincing litigants that the system does work. It's one of the best in the world, and I just really enjoy being part of it, and always enjoying the experience. I sit in the criminal division now, and so that's what I did for a long time, and so I enjoyed that as well.
Thank you, Judge Breland. Judge Silverman Katz.
And I am here. First of all, I want to congratulate Judge Medina for 1 year on the bench. That's a huge milestone. My name is Deborah Silverman Katz, and I am what's known as the assignment judge of a particular vicinage. In New Jersey, we divide the Superior Court into vicinages, which kind of sort of equates with however many counties we have, smaller counties are combined. The assignment judge means the chief judge of that vicinage with responsibilities for the Superior Court as well as the municipal courts. It's interesting because we've got Judge Breland, who was a prosecutor. We've got Judge Medina, who is a PD, and I come from the civil and private sector. So it's pretty much covered with my colleagues and I. We've got almost everything covered. I did work in the civil sector for a while. I also was county counsel for the County of Camden for a while. I was disciplinary board counsel over in Philly, where I prosecuted attorneys for not applying the rules of professional conduct to their actions, which was an interesting job. I have been on the bench. It'll be 12 years in July. I've been the AJ. It'll be 6 years, 12 years. It's 12 and a half years in July. I've been AJ 6 years in July as well. And I agree with Judge Medina and Judge Breland. This is a unique honor to get to talk, even in this remote and virtual reality, to so many students at once. It's one of my favorite things to do. Everyone who is tuning in and who is in law school is the next generation of lawyers. We take that responsibility very seriously, which is why, and I think I can speak for the other judges, we sincerely promote a clerkship. You're not going to get a better job than a judicial clerkship when you graduate from law school. You get to see what we call the other side of the house and how decisions are made and the things that go into meting out justice in all 3 divisions. It's a remarkable and wonderful job, and if you can get it, I can't tell you how much you should apply for it and take it.
Thank you. Couldn't agree more. Maria, are you there? Are you available to talk a little bit about your background and what brought you to law school, and why did you decide to seek a clerkship?
Sure. So my name is Maria de Oliveira. I graduated Rutgers Law School in 2019. I was a non-traditional student. I attended the evening program in Newark, and I also took some classes in Camden as well. And so I just wanted to thank the judges today for welcoming me to this panel. And I really express gratitude, and it's important for law students to understand the impact that you can have and what you can learn in a judicial clerkship. For me in particular, the reason why I sought a clerkship was because I have a business background, which lends itself to not as much litigation and court rules per se. And so working for Judge Medina, I've had the honor and privilege of seeing the inside and the inner workings of the court and how it works. And I think there's no better way to learn how something works than to be physically part of that process and learn the inner workings of it. And so for me, I think law is especially important because we have the ability to enforce and uphold the law, and it's the rule of law in society. And so we as lawyers, and particularly future lawyers, we have an obligation to the Constitution as well as to our fellow members of the community to implement in those laws. And so I'm honored and privileged to be here today. Thank you all.
Great. Thank you, Maria. So let's circle back to your judge then, Judge Medina, if you're there. I mean, what does a law clerk do for you? What is the daily work of a law clerk?
It starts early. I happen to be assigned to the family division, and I have a calendar in Bergen County, which is, I like to describe it as an ambitious calendar because of the volume. But what that does is that it does put a great deal of onus on my law clerk to ensure that the post-judgment matrimonial motions that I handle on a traditional motion cycle, which is traditionally every other Friday, but because of the volume that we have, it is every Friday in reality. And she really is charged primarily with ensuring that that docket is prepared, that the litigants are submitting the responses in due course, and that she is doing the necessary legal research and writing and speaking with me, allowing me an opportunity to review these motions in advance, so that if I have any questions and I need points of law researched, she's able to do that research in advance of oral argument. And what she is a master of doing, frankly, is managing so many moving pieces and really being very much my right hand. There is probably no one person in my on the staff or within the team that I rely on as heavily as I rely on as my law clerk. Especially being a newer judge, some of the my more distinguished and experienced colleagues may not necessarily have to research every point, but certainly I do have that need, and Maria certainly is a wonderful asset. So I say that it starts early because I'm on the bench all day. I'm handling DV trials, domestic violence trials, all day, 4 days a week. So most of our interaction is happening on breaks, and it is happening in the evening or in the early morning hours. And so I do rely on a person who's very dedicated, who's diligent and responsible. But I think that those are the qualities that make a budding attorney all the more successful when they do enter the legal market.
So Judge Breland, how does the law clerk's duties differ in criminal division, for example, or is there something different in your relationship with your law clerk?
Well, I certainly would echo what Judge Medina said. They really are your right-hand person, and they really do provide a valuable resource in terms of what they do. So in criminal, it's I have a little bit of an advantage of having practiced as a prosecutor for so long. But there's always things that are changing and evolving in the law, and different issues that come up sometimes that aren't, always at the top of my mind or thinking. So it's our docket is a little bit different than the family. Of course, I sat in family for about 4 years roughly. So it is kind of a breakneck pace. Criminal is sort of spread out a little bit. Most vicinages where your primary calendar day is Monday. They're sort of trying to move in terms of more efficiency than maybe change the calendar to more than, it's twice a week. So Mondays are sort of the calendar day, if you will. The arraignments, conferences on cases, what's the status of things? Are we moving towards a case being resolved, or is it going to move towards a motion practice and a trial? And then on Fridays, those are primarily your sentencing days. There may be motions scheduled on those days in the afternoons, usually, at least in Burlington, and also violations of probation type hearings. And in between that time, so you generally Tuesday through Wednesday, sometimes more than that, are reserved for trials. So in between all of that, the law clerk is preparing for the Monday list, as we call it, and on Thursdays and during the week, preparing for any motions that might be upcoming on Friday, or sentencings and things of that nature. And sometimes sentencings are fairly routine, and other times there may be issues or argument involved, and things may come up, and we have to kind of respond in the moment, depending on the discussions that take place. So again, my great law clerk, very diligent young man, does great work, very involved. I like his opinions. You know, I said, what do you think about this? Or where do you think this case is going? And we kind of, you know, toss ideas and things back and forth to try to come up with the right and proper decision. I think it's the best. I agree with Judge Medina. It's a great opportunity. You kind of get to see, you know, the law kind of up close and personal, and say how the sausage is made, if you will. And so I think knowing that going into becoming an attorney lets you know how you want to go about you know, making an argument. You see arguments in court, and it really is, I would say, probably one of the best opportunities to really see the court system up close and personal, as opposed to, you know, becoming an associate in a firm perhaps, and that's you know, admirable as well, but you really don't get to see the nuts and bolts of things as quickly and in the same volume as you would as a law clerk.
So thank you, Judge Breland. Judge Silverman Katz, can you talk about the duties of a law clerk with regard to an assignment judge? And also maybe you can discuss how the COVID-19 pandemic has perhaps changed the work of law clerks and the judiciary generally, if you can briefly.
Sure. Well, as the assignment judge, I actually have 2 law clerks, and most AJs throughout the state have 2 law clerks. It's because our work is divided between our judging or judicial work, where I actually put on a robe, and administrative, where I actually am responsible for everything that goes on in the vicinage. Judicially, I choose to do primarily civil work, and it's fairly complicated civil work. It's land use, it's orders to show cause, it's expungements of involuntary mental health. And we've got motions, a civil calendar has motions every other Friday, and my law clerks do what any other civil law clerk would do in terms of writing up motions, doing research. A lot of my opinions are written, unlike several of my colleagues. So they go through drafts, and we do a lot of writing. Administratively, unlike many of the other judges, I could say unlike all of the other judges to the extent that AJs handle it, we do administrative work, which is just as legally related as is my judicial work. I can have somebody who's decided to picket outside the courthouse, and I will call the law clerk in and say, I need the law in New Jersey, which talks about public and private picketing, how close can they come? And they'll do that. I can have an employee who decides to show up in pajamas for work, and I now need to know union contracts, and I need to know civil service, and I need to know what do we do for this employee. Any complaint that anyone has about anything that happens in the judicial system will eventually wind up on my desk. I've got people unhappy with judges, I've got people unhappy with lawyers, I've got inmates unhappy with what's going on. My law clerks are phenomenal, and they will field those questions for me. They'll prepare letters for me. We'll talk about what the next step is. So it's divided among that way. It's very, as Judge Breland was saying, and frankly, I heard it from Judge Medina as well, it's fast paced, it's nonstop. It is interesting. You will never get to see this again unless you too become a judge, which is possible. But it's divided among judicial duties and administrative duties. In terms of COVID-19 and the virus, New Jersey courts are now virtual. We never stopped. On March 16th, we went virtual. We've been virtual ever since. We are hearing almost every kind of application. There are a few exceptions. We don't hear jury trials because we have no means to do that. Every single judge, Superior Court, and now municipal court in the state of New Jersey has been trained in virtual and remote applications. We use different platforms for litigants, for lawyers, for court users. They come through. Judges wear their robes. We are in virtual courtrooms. Everything is e-filed, and we have not slowed down. I think the Chief Justice last Friday said we heard over 200,000 applications, or that may have been court users since Friday, and we march on. We just started a program, a pilot program in some of the northern counties to actually do grand jury remotely, not grand jury selection, but grand jury deliberation remotely. So in terms of law clerks, it hasn't changed anything for the law clerks. The law clerks are still working remotely. Every single one of them has been trained. They work very closely with their judges. I have daily meetings with my law clerks virtually. The work is as assigned by the judge. They, in family division, the family law clerks have access to the programs that they need to assist their judges, the same in criminal and in civil. So the law clerks are just as busy, and I can tell you that as we anticipate the future, no idea when we're going back. I know it's going to be a graduated process like the rest of the country, frankly. Our law clerks coming in will undergo training and do what's required of them if we have to be virtual. We are also hiring, if individual judges want to hire interns over this summer, assuming that that is with permission of either the presiding judge or the assignment judge. I just gave approval for 3 interns out of Rutgers, by the way, for our judges. In Camden, we're fortunate to have Rutgers in our backyard, and we are moving forward. So the work of the judiciary has not slowed down. If anything, it's gotten busier because we've all had to figure this stuff out. I am now an expert on different Zoom backgrounds. But we have not slowed down. The big question, of course, is the question that everybody has been asking is when do we go back and under what kind of conditions? And the Chief Justice has started a working group with various subcommittees for that, and everybody's working really hard to make sure that we can go back in the safest method possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge Silver-Katz. Judge Medina, can you talk for a moment about what plans do you have, or how do you envision your relationship with your clerks when they finish their clerkships? Do you plan to have an ongoing kind of mentoring relationship with your clerks? Do you envision being of assistance to them in their networking and looking for post-clerkship positions?
Well, I have the distinct honor of having a person who mentored me show me the way, and that was the Honorable Lois Lipton, who is now serving on recall in Hudson County, but was a Bergen County Superior Court judge for whom I clerked. And so that is how I began. And I was remiss in saying that very relevant point in my opening. But I certainly would want to emulate the relationship that I've had with Judge Lipton. And I still refer to her as Judge Lipton all these years later, even though we're now colleagues and I can call her by her first name, but I still don't. She was a judge who was at my wedding and at my children's baptisms, and was a person who was very instrumental in my ascension to the bench. And I find that that is certainly the kind of relationship that I hope to be able to have with my law clerks moving forward. And, to the extent that Maria is on this call right now, I'm sure she'll be able to speak to what kind of I would hope I'd like to be considered a mentor to her in many respects. But I was, in my capacity when I was an attorney, I was the director of the mentorship program for the New Jersey Hispanic Bar Association. And so I did have the unique opportunity to be able to forge some of those mentorship type relationships with individuals from Rutgers and Seton Hall law schools. And I hope to a large degree, to the extent that ethical rules permit, if the attorney is not appearing before me, et cetera, that's something that I will be able to nonetheless maintain that kind of mentorship type relationship where appropriate. And I'm hoping, even though it's only my first year, I'm hoping that future law clerks, once COVID clears and we can resume life as normal, to have an annual reunion. I'm sure I've taken the lead from many other judges who I've learned have done that successfully, and have a reunion every year to be able to maintain that continuity of contact.
Thank you. Judge Breland, I know I bring this up because, students, are interested in knowing what their path will be like after a clerkship. Can you talk about your relationship with your former clerks?
Some of them have spread out a little bit in terms of different states and the like. So we haven't had the same kind of contact, but the ones who are local from time to time will still touch base. There's always been an understanding, and at least I hope I've made it clear, and that they know that anytime there was something that might come up in their careers or pursuits that they wanted to run by me, or wanted to get my opinion about it, or they may not want my opinion about it, I certainly want to create an environment, and hopefully I've been doing that for years, where they know that I'm certainly available. Whatever information or wisdom perhaps I might be able to share about the efficacy of a certain career path, or whatever the case may be, I certainly try to develop that relationship, in a way that fosters that. My biggest thing that I would share, and I've shared with the students, most importantly, there's law school debt, and for many people, and deal with that. But I would say, and I say this in my law course, pursue something that you're passionate about, that your gut tells you is the right thing, that kind of motivates you and drives you. And then worry about the other aspects of things down the road. Not that money isn't important. And look, I think it's the most phenomenal opportunity to have out of law school, but it may not be the most lucrative. But it's certainly, I think, the experience that you get down the road, it's valued by employers, and some firms like to have a clerkship first. But most importantly, find something that really motivates you, that you're passionate about, and that you really think you can sink your teeth into. And if you're doing that, it won't really seem like work, but it'll seem like something that you enjoy. That's all.
Judge Breland, this is Judge Silverman Katz. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, something looked like it happened. I can hear you fine now.
I don't know that we can hear Ms. Bear.
I was lost there for a moment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Judge Silverman Katz, while you're there, can you talk about some examples of where some of your former clerks have gone on to work?
Sure. I've got one who's an assistant U.S. attorney. I've got one who's an associate at, well, I've got several who are associates at top, by top, given by the New Jersey Law Journal rankings, law firms in both Philadelphia and New Jersey. That include Gibbons, that includes Blank Rome, Parker McKay. I've got, like Judge Breland, I've got some clerks who are spread out in Massachusetts and Michigan. And I've got some who actually, even though I do civil, I've done family, who have become prosecutors. They are all over the place. I'm happy to say that every last one leaves here having a job, and I think it's because they're coveted by employers, having learned what they learned at the hands of the judge. And much like my colleagues, I maintain close contact with them. At least once a year, we get together on a social event, a social occasion, but they also have my private information, and they will reach out. Several of them have had questions about legal choices. They were not very happy with where they wound up and wanted some information about where they can go from here. Law clerks become part of our family. Law clerks are with us more waking hours than they are at home during the course of the court term. So we become very close. and we are a family. You know, that's one of the things I look for actually when I hire law clerks, is to make sure they fit. I have 2 secretaries as well, and we need to all work together. So the relationships that we maintain during the year are actually maintained even after they leave. There's very few. I think there are 2 law clerks who I have lost contact with, and they would have been in my first 2 years on the bench. And for whatever reason, I have difficulty locating them, but every other law clerk that I've ever worked with, I'm still happy to say I just married one of them a year ago. I didn't marry him, I married him. But it's important. I think you become very close with your judge. You rely on your judge more than just an employer. Your judge, you know, steers you and guides you and mentors you. And again, we take that responsibility seriously.
Thank you, and apologies for my my internet connection there for a moment. All right, Judge Silverman-Katz, while you're up, while I've got you here, let's jump into the application process. So I think most students know already that the clerkship portal for applications opens up this June 15th. But we know that not all judges start hiring right away in June. When do you hire? What is the, you know, what time of year do you like to start your hiring process? And what do you look for in a clerk?
2 different questions. One is easier than the other. I have no time period. When the portal opens, I start receiving the applications. We also receive some applications outside of the portal, which is becoming more and more unusual. And I know both Kevin and Keith could talk about that. But when the resumes come in, I start taking a look at them. And because I have the benefit of having 2, I typically want 2 law clerks who will complement each other, but not be the same. And by that, I mean, I like them to be a little diametrically opposed in terms of what their interests may be, where they're coming from. I always try and reserve one of my law clerk seats for a Rutgers graduate. My daughter graduated from Rutgers Law. I am not a Rutgers Law graduate. My daughter graduated from Rutgers Law, and when she was there, I saw the quality of the institution, the quality of what she was learning. She actually was an associate at Gibbons over in Philadelphia. Rutgers was wonderful to her, and I want to pay it back. So I do reserve one, if not both. It's usually just one seat for Rutgers, because I recognize the quality of the candidate that comes from that school on a personal level. You know, I know that you're bright or you wouldn't have gotten into law school. I know that you're bright or you wouldn't have graduated from law school. So while grades are important, they are not the be all and end all. I like to see what else you do. I want to see what your activities are. And I also want to see if you've done your homework. If you're going to spell my name wrong on the letterhead that you attach to it, I'm not going to interview you. If you're going to put information in your cover letter that talks about me, I've got several published decisions. You could look me up. I'm going to interview you regardless of what your grades are, because you've done your homework, and that's impressive to me. During the interview, I like to see what kind of person you are. What do you do? What was the last book you read? I'm going to talk to you about your favorite classes in law school. I'm going to talk to you about your least favorite classes in law school. I'm going to talk to you about writing, and I'm going to talk to you about where you see yourself in the future. But I also want to see you as a person. What do you read? What do you eat? What do you do on your time off? Why do you want to be a lawyer? Why do you want to be a law clerk? I want a well-rounded individual who is going to be successful, who, and I say this to the people I interview, who's hungry. And by that, I don't mean food. I want you to be hungry to make a difference. I want you to be hungry because you want to serve the public, or you want to go into private practice, or you want to defend people who otherwise, you know, have no voice. I want hungry people who can do the work that they're looking and telling me to do. And here's a tip for just anybody who's going to interview with a judge. When a judge says, why do you want to be a law clerk, or why do you want this job? That's great for you to tell me everything, how wonderful you are. You're a great writer. You've had all this experience. You'd be, you know, you could learn so much, and it's a goal of yours, and you can see what goes on, and you can see great judging. My reaction to that is, great. You've told me what I could do for you. Now tell me what you could do for me. And we go on from there.
Judge Silverman Katz, I'd like you to conduct all of my future interviews.
You got it, Judge, not a problem.
All right, Judge Breland, what's your clerkship hiring timeline like? When is there a particular time of year that you hire? You know, as we know, not every judge hires as soon as the portal opens.
Well-
and what is it that you look for in a law clerk?
Well, I would say, in full transparent disclosure, I hired my clerk for this term, for the coming term, beginning in August, just not even a month ago. So that's not usually my practice, but you know, sometimes time gets away from you. I'd like sooner than later, not crazy early necessarily, but I would say no. My general practice has been somewhere between August and January. I would be looking to give myself that kind of window, if you will, for the coming term. So this one is a little bit later. But in any event, that's sort of my time frame. I actually don't have the same luxury as some other judges. I'm not a native New Jersey person. I was born and raised in Ohio, actually. But I've been in New Jersey since 1990, so it's been 30 years now. But I was up in North Jersey for a while, so I don't have the same familiarity with South Jersey and the connections to the law schools the judges may have. Starting to have been trying to develop that over time. It's nice to have homegrown talent, and I certainly agree with Judge Silverman Katz that the local law schools have some extremely bright and talented people that are available and hopefully interested to do this kind of work. And I think I agree with much of obviously what Judge Silverman Katz said about what she looks for. The main thing I would agree with for me is I really do want to know, and I just use this sort of generic term, you know, are you a decent person? Are you a good person? Yeah, can I sense that there's, you know, someone who's compassionate, who has empathy, who has qualities that will help them navigate, you know, the challenges, the stresses, and times where things are, you know, can get hairy. Is that someone who I'm going to be able to work with and isn't going to, like, you know, freak out when they have a moment or something together. So really kind of, what do you like? I agree with Judge Silverman Katz. You know, most people applying for clerkships have usually done, you know, fairly well or very well in law school. And so you look for those sort of intangibles, I think, that you might not get from, you know, the one dimension of a resume or even a writing sample. Like I said, like Judge Silverman Katz said, you know, what do you like to do? What kind of drives you? What are you passionate about? What are you interested in? Where do you see yourself, you know, in the next number of years? And for me, getting a sense of, are we going to be able to connect? You're going to work together pretty closely, very closely for a year. And sometimes I may even, you know, want to get feedback maybe from the current clerk or the secretary. Not necessarily that that's dispositive, but you kind of want to know what's the vibe that they get, and you know, does it seem like someone that they can, you know, manage with and the like. So for me, it's a lot. It's certainly some of the main criteria that you necessarily have to look at, but more, as much, if not more so, sort of that intangible quality. Good person, hopefully a good sense of humor. I, you know, like to have a good time, keep things light. There's a lot of heaviness in what we do as judges, and you know, where you can, if things can be light and airy, you know, that's sort of preferred. So I look for that primarily as well.
And Judge Medina, I want to jump to you. Do you have a particular, I mean, as the newest judge on the bench, you have the least experience with hiring. But what's your thought about the timing of your hiring going forward, and what things you look for in a clerk? And I'm going to actually throw another question in there for you. this spring semester, you may know that the law schools went to a pass-fail grading system. And so some students may be wondering whether the lack of those spring semester grades is going to have an impact on their applications. A student who may have been, on track to improve their GPA substantially this semester may have lost that opportunity. And how, if at all, would that impact an application?
Thank you. I'm going to start with the latter portion of your question first. In my estimation, I think students need to understand that judges themselves have been students and then law clerks and then lawyers before we got to where we were or are. So I think that we all understand that there's a natural learning curve in the culture of what it is to be a student in law school. And so you have a portion of students who just come out of the gate running and do very well. But I think the large majority of students, there's some progression in how well you do. If you compared my first semester grades to my last semester grades in law school, it's night and day. And so I personally recall that dynamic. And so I don't suspect that that's going to be something that's entirely dispositive. So the pass fail is not going to be overly detrimental. Perhaps a student who was doing well academically will have expanded their horizons beyond just academic work and will have become involved in other type of student organizations or lending their talents and internships, et cetera, such that their resumes become slightly richer and speak to more of their interests and capacities. So I think the judges are going to be well suited to be able to gauge them, regardless of not having the GPA that they wish to have. But for me, I like, my intention is to be able to hire before November. So right before the Thanksgiving break, Judicial College Week, I'd like to know by that point, ideally, who my law clerk is going to be. And if I'm not there, then by the very latest, the end of the year, because I would like to have that continuity of knowing who it is going to be well in advance, if possible, if the right person presents themselves. For me, I was on the hiring committee for the agencies with which I've worked, and I think that the same qualities are important in a law clerk, which is that you're approachable. So I want to be able to have lunch with you when we're not talking shop. But I want you to be able to turn on and off the formality that is required of a person who is representative of the judiciary. Somebody who's patient and dignified and approachable, yet knowledgeable, because they are interacting with the public in a way that the judge is not. So really, they are the public face of the judge's chambers. And with respect to the other qualities, I would like to have somebody who is an independent worker for the reasons that I stated previously, but somebody who's patient, because we do deal with many self-represented litigants who don't have the benefit of somebody to tell them exactly why their pleadings are deficient. So someone who is going to be able to look to the greater good of the public that we serve in a very patient way and answer the 15th call from that litigant. Even though they don't want to, and do it with a smile on their face. So those are the traits and qualities that I look for, and hopefully that person will come around before December.
Could I just weigh in, Rebecca, briefly? This is important to mention, and I know certainly Judge Silverman-Katz and Judge Medina would echo this, and it actually is something that is supported by the Chief Justice of the New Jersey Supreme Court, is diversity. Obviously, I'm an African-American male, and I've been very intentional about wanting to make sure that when it's all said and done, eventually, I think at retirement, it'd be like 18 years roughly. So I would really like to see the law clerk pool of people that I've worked with and hired look like our world. A lot of different ethnicities and gender and so forth and so on. So I certainly, that isn't always like the defining thing, but certainly something that I'm mindful of and look for in terms of the variety of types of law clerks I've hired.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that and underscoring that it's a priority, both of yours and of the judiciaries at large. Maria, turn to you for a moment. You can unmute yourself, I guess. So can you talk a little bit about your application strategy? I mean, why did you decide to clerk? How did you prepare for your interviews? How did you decide where to apply? Which judges?
So for me, I thought it was important to work for somebody who could be a mentor and teach me the ropes within the legal profession. That was very important to me versus learning the subject, that specific subject matter. And so I looked for judges that could provide that support and that mentorship. And I had known of Judge Medina through the Hispanic Bar Association, and she had been recognized by Rutgers Law School as well. And so I was aware of her dedication to the community, as well as her position within the Public Defender's Office, and that she became recently a judge. And so I was looking for someone who wanted to serve the community and who was diverse as well, because I am Portuguese descent, and so that is of particular importance to me as well. And in interviewing, to future fellow law students, I think it's important to also interview, on any interview you're going on, the people that are interviewing you interview them, right? You want to be in an environment where you're compatible, where you are going to excel and grow and learn. And I found with Judge Medina, we clicked. With her staff, we clicked, and that was evident when we met. And I believed, and still and clearly feel that way, that our backgrounds are so diverse, but they mesh. My business background lended itself well to family and matrimonial matters, and her criminal defense background educated me on an area that I knew little about. And so from that, I've had the opportunity to catapult into various interviews with firms and benefit from the mentorship that Judge Medina has provided. And I can speak very candidly about how employers view in clerkships. They recognize Bergen County. So Bergen County is a very voluminous docket, and so employers recognize the role that I have as Judge Medina's right hand, that I point to her on the screen, and that we handle so many different things on a given day, and we correspond with not only our judge, so Judge Medina, but other judges within the vicinage, other judges outside of the county, attorneys, litigants. And so that skill set is transferable, I believe, no matter which department I go into, subject matter. And so, and I would say, know your judge, research them, like Judge Silverman Katz said, know the things your judge has adjudicated, understand their background, and recognize if that's what a person you want to learn from and be mentored from.
Thank you, Maria. I'm going to just circle back to each of the judges at this point for any kind of final words before we move on to a few minutes of technical information from Kevin about the clerkship portal and important dates to know about. So Judge Medina, I see you're on. Any final words of advice to law students considering applying for clerkships?
Sure. I would say that it's important to not forget the formality, and I said this just in passing, but of the interview process as well. So maybe it's just my own pet peeve, but I really don't like not getting a thank you email or a letter after the interview. I would like someone who still has that old school, if you want to call it that, formality. And so don't forget that. the niceties that go along. I had a law clerk candidate who mixed up the dates and didn't show up to an interview and then wanted to reschedule, and that was it. There was no second chance on that. So be careful with your calendaring. Make sure if you're going to be having Zoom or FaceTime interviews, however we end up doing this interviewing process, make sure that your technology works in advance. I'm guilty of not having gotten the WebEx because my trial went longer than I had wanted to. So I was 2 minutes late. But if this were an interview, so allow me to give you my apologies for that. But if this were an interview, that could have cost you the job. So just be careful with some of those formalities and make sure that you're ready and that you're dressed appropriately, even though we're on camera. Just those finer points that we may lose sight of in this now virtual world.
Thank you for that, Judge Medina, and thank you for your time. Judge Silverman Katz, any final words of advice?
Well, I think my colleagues have gone through it all. I agree with everything Judge Medina is saying, especially dress. I mean, you know, if you don't wear a watch, borrow one and stick it on your wrist because it shows me that time is important for you. It's important for me. But more than that, I really can't push all the students enough to apply for a clerkship. No matter where you see yourself in 5 years or in 10 years or in 20 years, the bench or somewhere else, you will never be able to get the experience that you will when you're a law clerk. And I always tell my law clerks, you know, there's different rules that attach, but what stays in Vegas, what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas, what goes on in chambers stays in chambers. You'll get to hear the judge critique and criticize lawyering practices and briefs that are submitted, and you become a better attorney because of that. Additionally, you know, I take the job of training the next generation seriously, and if you're sitting in my chambers, no matter how busy you are, and there's a murder trial going on that you want to watch it, you're going to go see it. If you want to see an adoption, you'll ask me if it's okay, and whatever judge is on the bench doing it, but you'll go see an adoption. You will learn more in your year as a judicial clerk than probably for the next 5 to 10 years you'll learn as an associate in a little niche position doing hopefully what you want to do. But you grow as a person, you certainly grow as a lawyer, and you hear me. I mean, I can't tell you enough, I can't push enough the benefits of a clerkship.
Thank you, Judge Silverman Katz. Judge Breland, some last words from you?
I would actually obviously echo everything that's been said and more so. Most importantly, as Maria said, be prepared. You know, it can be unnerving, you know, you're meeting, you know, perhaps meeting a judge in an interview for the first time, possibly. And you might have multiple interviews for clerkships. But, you know, we're human beings. We, you know, we understand people, we understand life, but we do, you know, want you to be prepared. We want you to take it seriously. We want you to present your best self, so that you don't, you know, leave an impression that you wouldn't otherwise want to leave. And just as Judge Silverman Katz mentioned about the names, I certainly hope to get some applications from people who are on this call and students who are graduating. But oftentimes, and people say it, the name, it's Gerard, so it's G-E-R-A-R-D, and many, many, many times it's Gerald. And almost, you know, it's one of those things, it's certainly something that'll stay in my mind. I don't know if it's an out and out disqualifier, but those sort of things matter. Like Judge Medina said, you know, did you show up are you early? You know, did you show up early? Did you show up, you know, running in the door? But yeah, if you can't get the name right, you know, it may, you know, put your application to the side, or it's at least going to be flagged. So pay attention to detail. Come prepared. Know what, as Maria said, interview. You know, come with some questions and things that you want to know, and those are just good. I think good things to remember.
Well, thank you very much to our judge panelists and Maria de Oliveira for the time to speak with law students today. I'm going to turn over now to Kevin Harmon. Are you there, Kevin?
Yes, hi.
Hi, okay, Kevin. Can you talk just very briefly in the few minutes we have left about the important application dates that are coming?
They're coming very fast. But the most important date is June 15th when our law clerk portal opens. You can go to www.njcourts.gov and click on law clerk recruitment page for that information and start applying, filling out your applications. June 22nd, justices and judges will be able to go into the portal and start contacting candidates for interviews and job offers.
That's terrific. And there's also an email address, right? lawclerkfaq@newjerseycourts.gov for some questions.
For any immediate questions, Rebecca and your admin from both Rutgers schools, they can contact me. They know how to do that. They've done a lot.
We certainly do know how to contact you. Let's see.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that there are a limited number of spots, clerkships available for the 2020-21 term still open. So any recent graduates, please go to our portal and apply if things have changed or you're still looking.
All right. Very good. Thank you very much, Kevin. Let's see. Let me just see if, nope. Okay. I guess he's off the call. So so that concludes our program. I just want to put in a plug for your career planning offices. Should you have any questions about the program today, any assistance with your clerkship application preparation, preparing for interviews, creating a strategy, review of your documents, please reach out to your counselors. I hope you know how to reach us at both campuses in Camden and in Newark. So with that, once again, thank you very much to Judges Silverman Katz and Judge Breland and Judge Medina. And thanks again to Maria de Oliveira. And be well and be safe, everyone. Thank you very much.
Having us. Thank you.